I'm excited to join this group here, and thanks for the warm introductions, Kay. Uh, uh, Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, really two of them, real estate and taxes. And I think it's a marriage made in heaven. A lot of people go into real estate for the cash flow, but they leave with the tax benefits. And that's certainly how I got into it. And uh, I have a fairly deep agenda today. Got a lot of topics to cover, so I'll go fast, but feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. I'll be conveying concepts that I don't know if any of you guys know about, or maybe you guys know a lot about, and I'm just like preaching to the choir here. Um, and so I'll make the assumption that you know everybody is a novice here, um, just so that I can clearly articulate what people want to know about. And Kay, if you can check the chat as well as the Q&A, and just let me know if anyone has any
Definitely,
questions.
definitely. And did you want me to push those questions to the end, or you want to kind of,
No,
go through them?
we can just go through. Happy to be interactive as possible.
Sure, sure, sure. So it looks like we got some question here. So one person, Galaxy J7 Star, asked if we could repeat the investments available. So I did mention earlier that we do, towards the end of the year, we have some deals closing. They are commercial real estate deals, two of them right now. So one is Stony Brook, which is basically a 100+ unit apartment. And that one's filling up pretty quickly. Again, closes end of the year. If you want exposure there, we'd love to have a conversation. The second one is called Grand Royale, which is a senior housing facility. So if you guys recall, if anyone's from my lecture, that has a lot of favorable macro tailwinds. You got the baby boomers, the location, the facility, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the two deals that are closing at the end of the year. Reach out if you have any questions. Vivek asks, could you also share information on advantages and drawbacks of real estate funds that invest into opportunity zone for tax favorable treatment?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. Let me go into the. I have a slide on options on fund. So let's talk about that then, since I have a little order of things.
Sure.
All right, I'll just start. So I want to first start by introducing myself. Appreciate everyone coming tonight on a Thursday night. Um, I am, first of all, not a tax professional. Let's just get that thing clear. All this advice is really educational, entertainment purposes. So do not sue me if these things wrong. I do not have a license, a CPA license. I am a taxpayer that doesn't like to pay taxes if allowed legally. And so I have a personal incentive to learn all this stuff. And that's how I've really understood and developed my learning and appreciation for the tax code. A little bit about my background. Went to Wharton, degree in economics, became an investment banker, helped cause the real estate financial crisis by booking $4 billion of subprime loans. Oops, sorry. I bought my first real estate asset right after that. Good timing. Went to the Peace Corps, did product at gaming, Riot Games, did marketing at a private equity group, data analytics at DirecTV, and did a few roles at Apple, most recently at Siri. But now I'm CEO of Tozy Capital. And the one underlying thread here is that I've been a real estate investor since 2009, and I've been investing in real estate on and on and on again. And I've learned a lot through that time. And while I won't necessarily focus a lot of my discussion today about my background, I'm happy to have actually a whole nother deck on how I got started into real estate and my real estate journey. But that's not focused on tonight's agenda. Happy to come back in to talk about that. But just a little brief history of my early real estate experience. I bought my first triplex when I was 23, right out of college. Right out, obviously it was a good timing, so I can't say it wasn't. And it was also in LA. So I was actually buying in out of state because I was living in DC, although I grew up in LA. So I bought a few of those. And until 2015, when I learned that residential real estate, when I say residential, 4 units and below, do not scale very well. There's a lot of issues with it. And I started to be more of a passive investor because real estate in California also became more expensive. And if you notice trying to buy real estate in California for investment, it's really an appreciation game. And at that point, might as well just buy Tesla stock or drop, the latest IPO. So that's probably where you get better appreciation. And then more recently, I started to buy commercial real estate in a few out of markets I love: Georgia, Florida, recently, Kansas, Missouri, and now I'm syndicating, which means that I'm investing, buying large commercial properties, and having co-investors come join me on that investment. Happy to talk more about it, or talk to Kay about it. So I think there's a whole cycle when you start earning money, and I think this is a very similar cycle for a lot of people. You start, for at least for me, I grew up pretty poor, didn't grow up with a lot of money, um, but when I started making money, I saved everything. When I was in Peace Corps, I saved $700 after 2 years, and we only made $200 a month, and $100 went into housing. So that didn't come in housing. Um, but I've always been a good saver, and that's how I've started to get some of the cash to buy my first property, which wasn't that expensive. But then realized that you can't save that much, so you have to earn more. And once you earn more, you realize, man, I'm paying a lot of taxes. So then, really, the third step is, how do I keep more of my money? Because that should be what it's titled. How do I keep more of my money? So that's at that stage. Now, maybe you guys are there now. Maybe you guys hopefully will be there in the future. Maybe you guys figure it out, and let me know what other tips and trips I should talk about or learn about. Um, so I'm going to go a little bit of tangent, and where, a little bit of my background. I started in residential, and again, I classify residential as anything 4 units and below, including single family. And commercial, you buy 5 units, you can get a commercial loan. So that's what I call it, commercial. With residential, I think a lot of people buy it because it's very accessible. I know for me it was, because probably know somebody who owns a condo or triplex, a duplex, or maybe a house that they moved out of, or you moved out of, and now you're renting it, and you think that's real estate investing. But it's not scalable. It leverages your financials. So when you ever bought a house, you go through a whole application process for residential loans. It's pretty arduous. It's pretty hard, and it doesn't scale. And when I say it doesn't scale, I mean, like, if you're a property manager, would you want to manage a 200-unit apartment building that's in one vicinity, or drive around to 500, 200 units, 200 houses? Or no, if you're really good, you go up and you pay a lower variable cost. Everything becomes cheaper. Everything becomes easier. Financing becomes easier. So that's really why I gravitated more towards commercial. And one more thing is, you really have a control on your valuation. You have a little bit more control in commercial than residential. What I mean by that is, residential houses, single family houses specifically, their value is dictated by sales comparable. And that's a lot of, but where the market's going on, if your neighbor's house sells for a lot, but he has a low NOI, net operating income, and yours is high, you would still sell for exactly what your neighbor sold for. You can't really control that, even though you might have varying different degrees of rents. But with commercial, your rent and your NOI, net operating income, dictates your valuation. And then if you can increase it, you can sell it for more. So that's why I go to commercial now. And I'll tie it back to the taxes in a little bit, because I think a lot of these tax strategies I talk about are easier with commercial properties. And I just want to highlight this. It's one of my favorite slides. What I need to obtain a residential loan. I know I went through 5 of these last year. Not great. Did 2 of them this year. But this house, I don't know why I keep buying houses. I just rent. But really, what are you gonna do when your wife asks you to nest? Yeah, so there's like lots of things you gotta get: IDs, lots of forms. If you're in tech, you gotta figure out what the hell an RSU schedule. You gotta explain what RSUs are. It's just a long list of things. And commercial, it's actually very easy. They care more about the property and how much it makes versus how much you make. They don't care how much you make. They care that you have experience and that you're a person that can pay with the property and you're responsible. So that's really, when you buy residential, you can probably only buy 10 uh, residential mortgages. So it's a little bit limiting there. So on to the main topic, main event, how to pay less taxes. This is, again, not a CPA, but I play one on TV. And this is really how I have learned, is really from talking to probably 30 plus CPAs and really asking a lot of questions and reading the IRS tax code. And so I'm very highly motivated to pay as little taxes as possible legally. And what I think I found out is it's really how to keep more of your earnings, because you're earning it. So let's figure a way to keep more of it. When it's all about taxes, it's about the facts. You have to rearrange the facts. So let's talk about what I mean by that. You guys remember order of operations? And I'm going to try to use that analogy here for most employees. And I was an employee as of earlier this year at Apple, a high paying employee, but still employee, W-2. And the way you get paid, the way you get taxes, you get paid, you pay tax on that income, and then you spend your money. Businesses get revenue, they have expenses, and then they pay taxes. That's a better order of operations for sure. Imagine if you could spend money pre-tax and everything. That's why they have HSAs and other, Roth 401ks and stuff. And I forgot this slide here. And that's what most of us do. We try to figure out a way to move 3 to before 2. How to spend pre-tax money. How to defer your taxes. 401k is really just a deferral. You put pre-tax money in. HSA, FSA as well. Most of our strategies are about shifting our spending before paying taxes. That's called rearranging the facts. Remember, when it's about taxes, it's about rearranging the facts. The facts can be the same. It just needs to be rearranged and reordered. So let's talk about investors. Now, as some of you guys might have heard, investors are a very privileged class from a tax-paying perspective. You spend money, you get paid on that spending, or you invest and you earn income, revenue, cash flow, and then you pay taxes. Potentially not. Let's talk about how to do that. One of the strongest ways that real estate allows you to not pay taxes now is deferrals. And deferrals is one of the strongest ways in general, given the depreciation, the devaluation of the dollar, right? If you owe the same amount 10 years from now, and the dollar went weaker 10 years, which likely it will, you have paid less. Plus, you could have compounded your money now. So a lot of great benefits deferral. So let's talk about how deferral works for real estate. Depreciation. You guys probably have heard of it. If you guys haven't, it's essentially taking the non-land value of a real estate asset, any income producing asset. If you sold your house and now you rent it, I mean, if you moved houses and now you rent your old house, it is now income producing real estate, and you can depreciate it. And for real estate of residential is 27 and a half years, commercial is 39 amortized. But let's take this example of buying a $1 million rental property for 25% down, 7% cap rate. For anyone who don't know what cap rate means, it means like private PE rate, a PE ratio. Yeah, price earnings ratio. It's basically your net operating income, how much money you make of the property divided by, after taxes and everything, net, before debt, divided by the purchase price. So 7% means that you're making $70,000 a year on a $1 million property. And cash and cash is 10% in this example. And why cash and cash is often higher than cap rate is because debt is cheap and leverage is available on real estate. So when you depreciate an asset, and I did the math here for you guys, I think I'm right. If not hold me to it, it's illustrative. Depreciation is going to give you $25,000 of losses, and this is paper losses, right? This is basically a tax write-off that gets recaptured in the future. You actually got that $25,000 in cash flow. Remember the 10% cash and cash, which means you put $250,000 down, you got $25,000 a year in your pocket. It's definitely not in California. And so for every year that you hold it and you get that depreciation, remember it runs out in 27.5 years, you get to not pay taxes on it. It's a really great way that I probably have paid, I don't know, 4 to 5% absolute taxes on my real estate earnings. And I've made quite a bit on my real estate earnings over my 12 years investing. So now what happens when you sell the asset? Now, of course, when you sell it for a profit, hopefully, you have capital gains. And so I just made an illustration here where that asset appreciated and you get equity out. You have two options here. You can tender an exchange, and I'll talk about that right now, or do a bonus depreciation. Actually, I'm going to talk bonus depreciation, or take bonus depreciation. And this is a new law that got passed as part of the Jobs Act in 2017 by, guess who, Donald Trump. Cost segregation and bonus depreciation is the technical definition. The layman's term is basically, typically it takes 27.5 years to depreciate straight line. You can take a little slice of that, maybe 20 to 30% of that. And instead of in that normal long term, you can just take it in the first year. That's called bonus depreciation. And you can actually do that on any property that you own that you bought since 1986. So you bought something and the cost basis is $1 million plus, I would maybe look into doing that. The net benefit of this is that you can defer taxes sooner. The net benefit is that you can take a bigger paper loss sooner. And in this case, the first year. So let's take the same example. I bought this $1 million property, 25% down, 7% cap rate, 10% cash and cash. And instead, I did a cost segregation study on the property, and I got a $300,000 net benefit, meaning that I don't have to pay taxes for quite a while. That carries forward. That bucket of losses is like a P&L, carries forward to next year. And every time you make money, it just dwindles a little bit, right? It's like any P&L. Now, the great thing is that if you made money on a lot of different other properties that are also passive income, you can use this and not pay taxes on that because it's all in the same silo and the same bucket. And so this is one of the reasons why you see real estate investors sell pretty quickly as well recently with this new law, because you can keep deferring, getting bigger buckets of losses.
Can I add a comment to that? This question seems pretty relevant. So Seth says, but if you don't have enough passive income, you won't be able to take the deduction that year. Correct me because I'm confused.
Yes, if you don't have enough passive income, you won't get a deduction for the year. But ideally, you have some passive income, and now you pay zero taxes on it. And whatever you don't use, you keep indefinitely. So if you had $100,000 losses and you use $5,000 of it on your $5 income, and now you make $10,000 next year, you have $95 losses that you still carried forward from last year, and then you wipe it down, you go down to 85. Ideally, you're getting more losses as well. These are paper losses. You might remember that.
Is there a limit on how much you can carry forward?
It's unlimited.
Unlimited. Okay, thank you.
So what happens when you sell? Capital gains happen, of course. And depreciation is a deferral taxes. What that means is you don't have to pay it now, but when you sell it, it gets recaptured, meaning that what you owed is now translated into capital gains that you had to pay as actually more favorable tax treatment, meaning 25% versus passive income, or less than 25 sometimes. What that generally means that you have a big capital gain event at your sell event. Now, most people do that, and one thing that they look to do is if you invest in a syndication, for example, you get the same benefit. So this is a real world example of somebody who invested in one of our deals that closed early this year. They invested $100,000. The cash flow is 10%, and they got a $75,000 benefit. So without having any other passive income or any other investment, they would be earning that $10,000 a year tax free, which is generally how I earn my money as well. It's a great way to earn money tax free. Remember, this gets recaptured at the end, unless, hopefully this is the right slide, you do 1031 exchange. So to do 1031 exchange, essentially a deferral, right? You're deferring that recapture event. You're deferring those capital gains. Both of those gains that you have if you 1031 exchange from a real estate investment property to another real estate investment property, is you pay that in the future, or maybe not. So what is 1031 exchange? When you sell, you have 45 days to identify 3 replacement properties. And then you have 180 days in total to complete that purchase. That allows you to then defer your cost, transfer your cost base from your first property to your second, creating a bigger capital gains that you have to pay, but then that you didn't have to pay now, but you had to pay in the future. Another deferral. So depreciation and tender exchange is a match made in heaven, just like real estate taxes. When you sell, your depreciation some people just sell when the depreciation is tapped out. In fact, if you hold it for longer than 27 and a half years, you probably should sell because you could gain some more tax benefits. And that's why you see real estate, again, transfer hands quite often, at least in the commercial and higher side world. So when depreciation is tapped out, you defer. Or if you, by the way, if you get a refinance, cash out refi, that's a non-taxable event. So if you got $100,000 out of your equity of your property, that's not taxable because that's your equity. One thing that I love about the 1031 exchange is that you can keep doing this indefinitely. So this is one of the tips and tricks that I didn't realize until like halfway through of investing, because I thought, okay, I got 1031 exchange, I got to pay it eventually, right? Well, no. If you keep 1031 exchange, you bought $1 million property, it goes to $2 million. Bought a $2 million property, it goes to 4, and you've got tax-free benefits throughout. And also on the capital gains of the 1 million and then the 2 million and so on, you keep deferring and getting that tax-free. You're now you have like 10 million on property from your 1 million investment, 3-4 cycles over. You've gotten so much depreciation benefit. Your cost base is nearly zero or zero. And if you ever had to sell, you had to pay a lot of taxes. And I'm pretty sure tax rates in the future will go up. But if you pass away and you set up correctly, your heirs get those assets adjusted to fair market value. Thus, no one's left holding the bag of taxes. It's a really great way to do asset planning and consider this deferral of paying taxes as really an elimination. So 2017 was a big year for real estate investors, and one of the reasons why I started to get back into it a lot. And yes, I will be talking about OZs and a few other stuff just right now, actually. Bonus depreciation was one of the things that came out of it. Option zones as well as pass-through tax deductions. But I'll focus on option zones and the benefits of that. I have a good friend who is a lobbyist at Apple, and he actually recently lobbied for one of the new visas, foreign worker visas. But he lobbies a lot and tells me a lot of stories on how Sean Parker was there in 2016 lobbying soon to be President Donald Trump to incorporate these things called opportunity zones. And this was bipartisan effort um, with Democrats and Republicans. And as somebody who had a lot of stock and would have to pay a lot of capital gains on the stock, he wanted a way to not have to pay the taxes. And so thus was born opportunity zones. And that guy became this guy. Probably not because of opportunity zones, probably because of his billions of dollars. And you can see those little subtitle that he is part of the little known tax code that created opportunity zones. Every 1%er in Silicon Valley wants in. And what are opportunity zones? They are predefined areas by local municipality, and it originally was intended to improve areas of growth. But you can see opportunity zones even in San Jose. So I'm not saying that San Jose is a place that needs a lot of development because there's a lot of capital coming in anyways. There's really three major benefits of investing in opportunity zones. And one is going to expire next year, but it's tax deferrals. And again, go back to deferrals. Almost everything about taxes is about deferring to pay in the future because you're deferring the same amount, in this case, if you sold $100,000 of Apple stock for $50,000. And your cost basis was $50,000. You have to pay $50,000 worth of capital gains taxes, or at least, taxes, capital gains on those $50,000 of capital gains. Instead of having paid that, say, $10,000 of taxes, invest that full $50,000 in a qualified opportunity zone fund and defer paying those taxes on those $10,000. Now that deferral lasts until next in 2026, in December 2026, and at that point you have to pay those taxes 5 years in the future, but you also pay 10% less taxes. So that's a really great benefit for real estate investors. Remember, you're investing in real estate assets, so you're also getting a lot of other benefits in terms of cash flow. If you hold on to the property for 10 years, you also get the benefit of essentially having a tax-free reinvestment. What that means is any capital gains that occur in the future on the real estate asset gets eliminated if you hold on for 10 years. So what qualifies for this? Short-term, long-term capital gains, sale of stocks, bonds, real estate, hedge funds, alternative assets, private equity, collectibles, art, all things. If you have to pay capital gains, don't. Try to find one of these. Invest within 180 days. And when you incur your capital gains, when you sell your stock, you have 180 days to then invest it. Through the CARES Act, there was actually a special provision that allowed opportunity zones to have even a longer timeline. And this is just for this year. And this is just for up until December 31st this year. So don't have a lot of time, but if you were able to take advantage of this, say you sold a big tranche of stocks in December of 2019, or as far back as October 5th, 2019, and you pay those capital gains already. Well, maybe you found a cool opportunity zone to invest in, maybe one of ours, and you invest in it, and now you can then file the amendment for 2019 and get that rebate back. And for those who sell something in January, just don't pay those taxes in 2021. There's a special form for it. We can help provide that. And so that's this extended benefit, although typically if you do sell your stocks, like say for today, you have 180 days to then invest it in the crop option zone to then start deferring and sheltering your taxes.
So we got a few questions here, if I could.
Yes, please interrupt.
Yeah. So one right here is, can capital gains from crypto assets also be deferred by investing into OZs?
Yes.
So this is from Fong. I saw lots of property listings that are in the OZ zone. Can I just buy them directly and get the tax deferral benefits?
There are ways to create a qualified opportunity zone business.
Hmm.
The way to qualify an opportunity zone business is to buy land or asset and put 100% improvements. So land is easy because there's no cost basis of the property, and you basically build something. Or you take something and you redevelop it so immensely that you put 100% of the original cost base of the asset into improvements. That's how you qualify an option zone. If you just buy a property in a qualified option zone, that does not necessarily count. A better way actually would probably to just create a qualified option zone fund, create one yourself, have potentially a QOZB qualified option zone business in mind. You probably need to talk to tax attorney. Probably would cost you $25,000 to build, but now you have a little optionality to play with it. As long as in crowdfunding option fund, you have 31 months, not days. It's kind of weird, right? 31 months to then invest it into a QZB crowdfunding option business. I'll stop here. Is there more questions you want to ask?
Yeah, there were a few questions that's going a little bit backwards here. So this is from Seth earlier. The future in commercial real estate is really questionable after COVID. Most companies have pivoted and can have the employees work from home and reduction of need for office space. What are your thoughts on that?
So let me redefine commercial real estate for me. It has many definitions, but CRE, commercial real estate, um, is any real estate that's not residential. And residential is any real estate that's 4 units and below. So that big apartment building in San Francisco, that's commercial real estate. That shopping center with the Dollar General, that's commercial real estate. That Amazon data center, that's commercial real estate. That train track, that's commercial real estate. All these income producing real estate assets are commercial real estate. That senior living facility that has high yields, but maybe it's affected by COVID, or has high yields and has all the benefits like that development. So yes, office and other assets have taken a hit. So has almost any rental income produced properties. Do you really? But you're seeing two things happen in the market: um, a bifurcation of this economy. You have the wealthy asset holders and those with capital get a huge injection of liquidity and really um, handle this last few months really well financially. And what you see there is a huge spike up and run up in stocks. You also see a run up in real estate assets. That's financing has gotten a lot cheaper, and so that has made it uh, very attractive to buy real estate. Um, and you see this really happening in San Francisco or any of these type of cities like New York. You see rents going down by almost 10%, but you see house prices go up by same 10%. It's a weird thing. It does not make sense. If a house makes less money, it's worth more. That's because that's a very atypical market. But one thing that highlights is rents do not really drive a lot of impact on pricing valuations. It's more about how much rich people are there trying to buy assets. That will dictate the price as well as what is the cost of capital. If your rates are going down by 1 point, your your debt service may be going down by $100,000 and you're making a ton more money. So you're willing to pay more money for the asset. That's why you see a lot of real estate in the Bay Area, especially go up because that's everything with residential real estate is all about affordability. If you have cheaper financing, it's more affordable. If you have stocks that go up, it's more affordable. You have more income, it's more affordable. All those things happen, which means prices go up. Until things become less affordable, by stocks going down, by having more stock, more inventory, then things will not be less affordable.
So we have another question here.
Yep.
Could you also share information on the advantages and drawbacks of real estate funds that invest into OZs for tax favorable treatment? I'm thinking probably time frame, but you tell me.
So real estate, you're probably referring to real estate. Well, let's just take a step back. There's two types of real estate funds. There's REITs, real estate investment trusts, and there's private equity real estate funds. I run this. I do this. I create syndications, private equity funds. We have a senior living fund. We have a couple other funds, and there's REITs. REITs do a lot of the same things, but you instead of buying a position in an asset, you actually buy a position in a REIT, a trust that then buys position in assets that pay lease and then like pays 95% of the cash flow as dividends. That dividend is taxable. That dividend is tax advantage, but you do not get any depreciation. When you buy private real estate funds, like what we run, you get direct ownership. That means that you are actually a partner on the asset. You're not a name partner, but you have shares of it. Like if you were a shareholder of Tesla, you hold shares of the asset and you get a K1 and you get a share of the P&L. That P&L will have that huge depreciation loss. So option zone funds, real estate funds that invest in option zones is essentially pretty much the only way most people invest in OZs. That's what we have as well. We have a fund. I think there's a few other ways to invest in OZs. Of course, you can do it yourself. If you have, that requires a lot of capital. Hopefully, I answered your question. There's a few other slides on OZs and specifically some of the benefits, but I touched on them. Really, three main benefits: deferral, reduction, elimination. A lot of other words. Another favorite topic of mine is land conservation easements. So it's a very interesting world that I got into recently with real estate investing. Because I used to buy real estate in cash flow, but I don't think I was a real estate investor until I realized all these new things out. And I also realized that a lot of people weren't paying nearly much in taxes. And I was like, okay, how are you guys doing this? And the sexiest thing I learned when I was a really high paying W-2 employee was a backdoor Roth IRA. So that was like the most slick thing that you could do. But land conservation easements, now that is a really interesting concept, and it's a very polarizing concept, and some people would claim risky concept. It's really a huge tax benefit that you can use without any real estate at all. So it's not really a real estate investment. It's a charitable deduction on a 4 to 5 times cost basis. Let me go into what that means. It also means it's a $1 billion loophole, and Trump has taken advantage of it many, many times. And it's really not marketed at all because no one markets this. It's mostly finding out that millionaires, when I say millionaires, people making $1 million a year and up, not people with $1 million of assets. Millionaires are using this pretty generously and realize that everybody talks about this, everyone, and they're all investing in one now. And I'll talk about why they're investing in one now. When you invest in, when I say invest, when you contribute to a land conservation easement, you get a typically 4 to 5 times benefit on your charitable contribution. So usually when you donate to charity, you get 1-to-1. You give a hospital or some charitable organization $100,000 and you get $100 right off. And of course, it's capped with some of the latest laws. But with land conservation easements, it hasn't been capped yet. And it caps on half the AGI, but I'll talk a little about that. You essentially can get a huge tax write-off by doing a contribution this month. Let's say you made $500,000 a year. if you made a contribution of $50,000 into a land conservation easement, and a land conservation easement is really someone buying empty land and then saying they're going to make office park or a something or another that they won't make, but now they made the claim that this land is a very high value, that low cost value of purchasing versus a high value of now donating to a land trust in an easement that gets preserved. And this is a federally sanctioned thing and happens quite often. And it happens in circles of people who make a lot of money but pay very little in taxes. And so you can put in $50,000 and take $250,000, let's say 5 times, off your AGI. How much less tax would you pay if you made half your money? Now you didn't make half your money, but your taxes showed you made less than half the money. You pay a lot. You probably save a lot of money. So in this case, you probably would have saved $90,000 in taxes. You did the math right. Depends on state and other stuff and a few other deductions. Now, another benefit here that you can take up to half of your AGI. So if you're making 250, it's probably not going to be that big of a benefit. You're making more. The more benefit you have, the higher the ROI. You invest now, today, December. Invest, it's a strong word. And then you get a tax write-off in March 2021. And if you don't use all of it, it's also indefinite rollover and impacts both state and federal. So this is another great benefit, especially for those living in very high tax California. I know a lot of folks who do this. It is riskier, and a lot of CPAs will say this is IRS audit risk. So again, I don't want to advocate for anything. That make sure you talk to your CPA or somebody you trust. I know a lot of people who still do it, and they have lots of good CPAs. So that's just how I've heard about it and how I've done it a few times. I want to circle back to yeah, go ahead.
Real quick, so we got some questions here. So for the land conservation easements, the AGI can come from all sorts of income. Is that correct? Including W-2, short-term, long-term capital gains, etc.
Yes. Adjusted gross income is all three combinations of active income, portfolio income, stocks, and passive income, real estate.
And then Joseph had a question here or a comment. Did you forget to mention if you hold 10 years in the OZ, all your capital gains on the new investment is capital gains free?
Yeah. So that's definitely one of the benefits I mentioned. Not only that, but also the depreciation recapture that you would have had. All that depreciation that you use, that if you sold it and you didn't tender on exchange, you would pay taxes on. All that gets eliminated as well. So another great benefit.
Yeah, and so we recently had a Florida Opportunity Zone deal, but that one filled up, guys. So we only have 2 deals left, which I think, Ang, you're probably going to go over what we got in this next part.
Yeah, so we had a few deals filled up, but I just want to highlight sort of what we do at Tozy Capital and circle back to a few of these things, because I try to create investment opportunities and I invest in all these myself. And the reason why I love these deals is because I want to make money. I want to make cash flow. That's really how I made money in real estate. Maybe not everybody. Some people like to get appreciation and don't really expect cash flow in the first 2-3 years, or maybe 1-2% cash flow. I don't know. I expect double digit. If I put $10,000 down, I want $100. I want $1,000 a year, and that has really allowed me to consider my cost of capital. If I know that I can borrow my mortgage at 4%, why would I pay any more than I need to? Because I can just always invest it at 10%. Now, what we've done so far is we've had some private equity deals. So PEC fund closed. It was a really cool offering. We might have more availability in mid-January for this one. This is essentially buying into preferred equity stock. So you get preferred equity It's taxes qualified dividends, so really tax advantage. Could be 0, it could be 15%, and pays out a monthly 1% yield, so 12% a year. How does it get so high in returns? Because it is a 1-year hold, but you do have you can't sell it right away. But if you want to sell it, you can sell it within 90 days, so 3 months. So that's an optional liquidity. But normally a 1-year hold with a 1-year optional extension. So you can just keep you have $100,000, get $1,000 a month. Pretty cool. And then if you don't want it, if you need the money, just sell it within 90 days to get it back. Stony Brook Towers is the other property that Kay mentioned. It's also going to generate a ton of cost seg bonus depreciation benefit. And why I love this one particularly is apartment buildings do generate a lot of bonus depreciation, but also it's high leverage and low land value. If I was buying in San Francisco, the land value would be disproportionately a huge amount of the purchase price, which means I would not be able to get as much bonus depreciation or depreciation in general on the cost basis of my investment. But with lower percentage, I get more. So that's closing in the next few weeks, and we'll be closing in December. So reach out to us if you are interested in that one. It will be 12% average annual cash flow for 10 years. Pretty good cash flow, I think, for 10 years. And then you get quite a bit of a windfall at 10 years when we sell the property. We have another property closing as well in a few weeks, and this one just opened up for investment, the Grand Royale. It's a 3-year hold for those who need a little bit shorter. It has all the benefits of real estate investing, but it's also preferred equity, which means it's like a debt. It's like a mezzanine debt that has a fixed term. So it's very predictable. It's fixed. You get 6%, 12%, and 18% first year, second year, third year. And it's paid monthly. So you put $100,000 down, you get $500 a month for the first year, $1,000 a month for the second year, $1,500 a month for the third year, and then your $100,000 back. And you got depreciation benefits, so you pay no taxes on all those, and you can then exchange that investment into the next one with us and get more depreciation benefits and not pay any taxes on the benefit you've gotten. So another great investment to get tax-free cash flow. And then we have the Jacksonville Senior Living OZ. Now, Kay did mention it's full. We do have a waiting list for that. We could have some opportunities for people to enter. It depends on if anyone drops out. We will have that opened up in the next few days. But that one is pretty well subscribed. Although we will have another one in the next month. But for this year, that long tail benefit of that IRS section from the CARES Act expires end of this year.
And you also mentioned the PEC fund is filled up now, right?
It is filled up, but we will have more availability in the next, I believe, 30 days. So if you're interested, let us know as well. We can send you information and review those documents, look at the webinar, and then ask if they get a waiting list, and we'll let you know when it's open. It will likely be within 30 days.
And for the PEC fund, does it have to be 506B? Can it be 506B?
Yes, so it doesn't have to be an accredited investor.
Awesome. And another question is, these properties, what is the legal instrument to buy, LLC or fund?
It is an LLC. We are structured as a partnership, but entities in LLC. So with any of these properties, except for the PEC fund, because that's a corporation, you get preferred stock. In these properties, you as an investor come in, and wish I had this diagram. You invest as a shareholder of this investment entity. This investment entity goes and buys 100% ownership of the property. That now creates this little separation of in terms of bubble protection. Of that investment entity, the manager is Tozy Capital or myself typically. And I am the only one exposed in terms of name and responsibility. Everyone is a shareholder that gets profit interest. And I had to sign on the loan. The investors do not have to sign on any loans. We have to then find and close and put our own money in, and we typically invest significantly ourselves. And then in January, we will have a few other ones. One will be mortgage debt against cannabis, which is a very hot asset and also one that does not get financing, unfortunately. So they had to pay very highly for real estate loans, and this is a first lien position, 40% LTV on a asset that the person got one of the few cultivation license in the state of Missouri that just legalized medicinal marijuana. So it's a big lottery system, and he got one of the few licenses for cultivation. And he needs funding. He has a lot of assets himself, but he wants some capital. So we're essentially selling that note for investors.
Now,
Then a few other senior living stuff. Sorry, go ahead.
now Ram had a question on the Stony Brook Towers. Is that a Class A apartment?
It is not a Class A apartment. Class A apartments do not cash flow very well. I like cash flow. I buy ugly buildings. I do not buy pretty, sexy things. If I want a trophy asset, I would buy one after I have $1 billion. I'm still scrapping. I'm still trying to find cash flow deals, and cash flow deals means going to C class buildings or B class buildings in C class neighborhoods and high cap rate, high operational expenses, but really great yields. And if you're really good at operating these, which I have essentially almost always bought C class assets that have, my first one was a triplex that I bought for $126,000. There was 2 units of $600, 1 unit for $900 a month in rent. My total expenses was around $1,200 a month, and I made a lot more in rents, so more than $1,000 on $36,000 down. Now this was 2009, and I can't buy that now, but I can buy that in commercial at scale in Kansas City.
So a question here. So if I had $100,000 in short-term capital gains this year, if I put into your OZ, I can avoid all the taxes on that capital gains, which is short-term.
Yes.
And then the last question here, is there any benefits to land conservation easement on smaller dollar amounts? I think that's larger only, right?
There is, but really you think about it, it's a 20% tax rate, right? Like you're getting, if you get 5 to 1, if you make a lot of money, you pay a high marginal tax on the top end. If it's a progressive tax system, so the lower down the totem pole of your taxes, the less the percentage tax. So at a certain point, it just doesn't make sense. It's really for people who make. I think my good bet guess is like 300K. Not I guess, I think 300K is a really good number. If you look above 300K, look into it. Yeah. And these investment options are not for unaccredited investors. These are mostly 506B, which means that we do accept some sophisticated investors as long as you've had a good relationship with us, like with Kay.
I think that's all the questions. I think
All
we're
right.
doing pretty good.
All right, and I just want to mention I have 2 funds coming up. I love senior living, by the way. Senior living is one of those assets that has amazing tailwinds. You have a booming elder population, and you have a need for care, long-term care facilities. And the bigger ones have all the scale benefits I mentioned, lower variable costs. You have 1 nurse per 20, and you can rotate them around. Not everyone needs a nurse right away. These are things that allow you to get scaling benefits and have even more yields than even multifamily. So I want to get back into taxes and just finish off with a few last thoughts on rearrangements. Shifting is rearranging, right? So when you rearrange gains from active to passive, you're essentially making short-term capital gains into long-term capital gains. Right? If you hold a stock for a year, it's essentially a similar concept. If your Airbnb income, for those who have an Airbnb or some kind of rental unit that has daily rentals, that's an active income. It's not passive. So you can't use real depreciation to shelter them. But if you have a investment entity that owns the property that then rents to another entity for a long-term lease of 12 months, and then that pays Airbnb, which you own, to it, then you essentially convert it active to passive. Anyways, a little complicated, but not that much. There's a lot of different concepts like that. Lots of ways to convert things from one thing to another. Pay your kids if you have kids $12,000 a year. I have a kid. I have these little stickers. See pictures here. Uh, this is marketing. I pay him $12,000 a year. Guess what he pays in taxes? Zero. You had to pay. You had to file a tax form, but you pay zero in taxes. No. Did my AGI go down by $12,000? Yes. So that's another way to move money from high income earners to low income earners. Now, is 2 years old too young? Maybe, but no, it's not. if you use it correctly, like pay your kids to do something. I think 7 to 11 is probably like where most people advise. Opportunity zones, of course, 401ks, all nows to laters, deferrals. Another lovely thing to do, and maybe it's a bit hard, and my friend tried to do this because getting a Model X is a 6-week wait time. But if you can change your consumption to an expense, it now becomes tax deductible. And if you had a business or had a side gig or hustle, and you bought a Model X or any car or vehicle that's 6,000 pounds or higher or more, and there's a whole rule, 6,000-pound rule, and there's a lot of Ram Chevys that weigh exactly 6,000 pounds for this purpose, you get to write that off as a business expense. And if you bought, say, a Model X or something this year and you used it for business because it's only a day left in the year, and you use it for that full 2020, for that one day, you could write all of it off. And now you can use it for pleasure, and you convert it off, and you got a 37% discount on your Model X. Congratulations.
Okay, so you provoke a question in me. Can we turn all consumption into an expense?
Almost yes.
Almost, yes. Damn, that's crazy.
When you go out with your friends, talk about business.
Yeah.
Go to Hawaii with your parents or your family, and talk about business a little bit. Let's make it a business trip.
Range Rover qualifies too.
Yes, anything over 6,000 pounds. So another way that real estate is really cool is changing passive to active. Now, why would you want to do this? Active seems worse. Well, not if your passive is so negative that you've got so much depreciation that if you moved it to active, you would pay zero in taxes. Real estate professionals can do this.
Is there something else I can help with?
Sorry. Real estate professionals can do this. So how do you qualify for a real estate professional? You have to spend more than 750 hours a year. So that's typically 15 hours a week. If you try and do this now, you can't. It's not that many hours left in the year. But you you spend this much time, and it's more than half your time. So you really can't be fully employed. You can claim to be a real estate professional. Now, if you're a real estate professional, maybe you're not making too much other active income. So you're asking me, why is that useful? I'm a software engineer. I make $400,000 a year. My wife doesn't work. Can she be a real estate professional? Yes. Can you now file jointly, which you should be. And now all your passive losses become active losses, and all your depreciation reduces your taxable income on your active W-2 job, capital gains from stocks, anything else, to potentially as low as possible, zero. So really, this whole presentation is to get you guys to fund my newest app idea, Real Estate Professional Matchmaker. If you're making more than $1 million a year, it makes sense to just marry a real estate professional. Why not? Just pay no taxes. Andrew Carnegie said 90% of all millionaires come so through owning real estate. And that was when millionaires wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, wait, when it was that big of a deal. That's not. More money has been made in real estate investing than all industrial investments combined. And that's very true still. Real estate has been a great way for me to build wealth, and hopefully you guys can as well. And you can see that there's three main facets of it. One being tax advantages, the other two being, of course, cash flow and leverage. So this is a really great option to invest and save money. Diversify, of course, if you believe in that. Maybe Bill Ackman doesn't. And I think one thing that struck me recently was there was a study done on all these public endowments and institutions and family offices, essentially really, really rich people and really, really rich institutions. They hold a lot of the real estate investment. They hold probably 45% of their assets in commercial real estate. It's something that probably they know, they've seen. And Donald Trump said this at the end of the presidential debates. And I said this when I was filing my taxes for 2019. I like to put my 1040 where my mouth is and show you guys that I have been following all these things. This is really a personal journey of how I paid zero in taxes, federal. California, I still paid you. All right, I went long. I'm not sure if anyone has any other questions. Happy to answer a few other questions. Otherwise, yeah.
Hey, thank you, Ang. That was an awesome presentation. Even myself, I learned a lot. So, real cool, guys. 30 people online. Feel free to ask any questions or anything you got. I know I saw one question I want to make sure we get. Let's see. The real estate is a fantastic option, but my CPA says it's #1 audit. Do you agree?
Land conservation easements or real estate?
I think it's real estate. Real estate professional.
Yes, real professional is a higher audit risk. It is a 2 to 4% audit risk. Ooh, scary, guys. 2 to 4%. I mean, like if you're a CPA, then you gotta really protect your guys. If your wife is not, if a stay-at-home mom, and you own real estate or you have investments, it's legitimate. Like people get real estate professionals all the time and they're married to one. It's a legitimate thing. Now, if you're working at Apple and you also claim real estate professional and you're also working 45, 80 hours on your day job, how do you have enough time to sleep and do it? That is a bit dicier. So that's probably why it's also a big audit risk.
What is the RE matchmaker thing you mentioned before we end?
It was this real estate professional matchmaker. I think it's an app that people should develop or some kind of like mechanism to match two people, a real estate professional and a very rich person with a lot of losses that also can be used for this active income. Now I had myself a wife that I converted into a real estate professional by having her manage my properties.
That's funny. So we got a question here. Well, actually, let's see. Can you recommend a good tax accountant?
Yes, I can. I can send it offline. I have a few I've talked to. There's different ranges, different. If you want someone local, someone virtual. I don't care if it's virtual. I Zoom everybody. I'm not gonna go anywhere. So.
Yep. So Ram, you asked how to reach us. So Ang's contact's there. You could also reach out to myself as well. I know Ang gets pretty busy because all these people are trying to invest in our deals. So you guys are also welcome to reach out to me and let me know how I can help. Question here is, if you have a W-2, you are automatically disqualified. Oh, it's not a question. Disqualified per IRS as a RE professional. That triggers lots of audits.
Yes, it is very risky. It does not automatically disqualify though. And the reason why I know this is because I've talked to 30 CPAs. And the reason why I talked to 30 CPAs is to figure out how to qualify my wife as a real estate professional. Because I was going to get $1.8 million of depreciation. And because of the CARES Act, it allowed for taxpayers in 2019 and 2020, this is weird because it goes back in a year, to claw back their losses all the way to 5 years ago, which means that if you have a lot of losses now, you could have gotten back in time and used it to not pay the taxes that you paid already and get that as a refund. The net of it is I used all of my losses and I got $460,000 back in tax refund for 2019. And so that's why I was um, very much in need of qualifying my wife as a professional, and which I did. And I talked to many CPAs about it, and I talked to many CPAs who were ex-IRS agents, the best type of CPAs. And they told me all the tips and tricks of how to not get audited. File late, not late, extended. File extended after the deadline, less risky. Create a narrative, right? Your tax form is a numerical representation of yourself. And if you can create a narrative around it, you can make it appear as anything you want. Most people don't ever get audited, but of course, if you do, pay a fee, and now you have to pay those taxes, which you would have had to anyways.
Mario says, I missed the deadline to do a 1031 exchange. Am I out of luck?
If you miss the deadline for 1031 exchange, check if you have an opportunity to then do a opportunity zone. In some cases, opportunity zone is a better way to defer taxes than a 1031 exchange, because the 1031 exchange is still deferring taxes, right? But opportunity zone can only really needs the capital gains portion. So if you sold a house for $500,000 and your cost basis is $400,000, you had to put the full $500,000 into a new property to 1031 exchange. You're putting a lot of capital to just avoid paying taxes on those $100,000. If you just take the $100,000 into an opportunity zone, you don't have to pay the tax on that or deferred, and then the other 400 you can use for anything else.
Okay. So possibly the last question here, because I know everyone wants to go eat and stuff. The 5-year loss carryback is not available to 2021. John
As of
asks.
now, no. So that's sorry, I didn't present this earlier.
All right, guys, I think that's all the questions. So I guess I want to close it out now with a few comments. One is, Ang, thank you so much for tonight, man. It was awesome for, well, hopefully it looks like it's awesome for everyone. Everyone's saying it's awesome. It was also awesome for myself. I also would like to maybe do this regularly. Maybe we could do it like every week or every other week, whichever. So anyone that's interested on here, feel free to let me know and we can make it happen. And last but not least, guys, I guess we got 2 deals at the end of the year here. Stony Brook and Grand Royale. Stony Brook is a 171 unit apartment, and that one's kind of filling up. We're still looking for investors. If anyone's interested, reach out to me. For Grand Royale, that's the senior facility. That's also filling up. If anyone's interested, again, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation. I'll run through it, whatever I can, and I'll help you guys. So yeah,